Hello, everyone. So, after listening to a bunch of people from different sides of the aisle, your Republicans, your Democrats, everyone's talking about Kamala Harris in variety of different subjects, whether it be the pronunciation of her name or, people are saying that she's unfit to be in office or be the president, or the undemocratic way of her assuming this nomination. It's been blatantly clear that a lot of people have a lot to say about her and her record. So, what I wanted to do is I wanted to dig into this record. I wanted to see for myself what was what, what's fact, what's not fact, what's true, what's not true, and figure out, how to make sense of this space. So, today I hope that I will remedy the situation by analyzing the actual public record of her predominantly as the district attorney of San Francisco, as well as the attorney general of California. As always, you guys are listening to Logic and Reason. So the record in question here is, especially with criminal justice, it seems to be a really hot topic. She wrote a book. In her book, Truths We Hold, Kamala described herself as a progressive prosecutor who used the power of the office with a sense of fairness, perspective, and experience. Someone who was clear about the need to hold serious criminals accountable and who understood the best ways to create safe communities and to prevent crime in the first place. So that's what she's touting herself as. So let's take a look at this record here. I want to look into specifically the years that she was a DA and the years that she was an attorney general. She was a DA between 2004 and 2011, and she was the attorney general of California from 2011 to 2017. One thing that I thought would be important is to actually go through what the responsibilities are for attorney generals, because I think it's different depending on what state you live in. So just so that we're all kind of on the same page and that we all have, full context of what's within her domain and what's not, I thought I would go over that first. So, part of what they do is that they oversee the California Department of Justice, and based off of the Constitution of California, the Attorney General has supervisory powers over the district attorneys of the state within all 58 counties. Which I didn't realize that many counties. I thought Texas had a lot of counties. They represent the people of California in civil and criminal matters before the trial courts, appellate courts, and the Supreme Court of California in the United States. They also act as the chief counsel of the state, representing state agencies and officers, and with anything that has to do with legal matters, as well as offering legal advice. They are also responsible for ensuring that the laws of California are uniformly and adequately enforced throughout the state to make things uniform. And they play a significant role in shaping the law enforcement policies, which will come into play later on, and coordinating with the statewide narcotics enforcement efforts to support criminal investigations and even provide forensic science service support. They also provide this annual report to the governor, and especially when it comes to managing forfeited property. So now, since we kind of got that out the way, let's get into some of these claims. So the first claim that I wanted to look into was Harris incarcerated thousands of people of color during her time as Attorney General of California. That's probably one of the biggest ones that we see floating around on the internet. And I tried to do my digging. And this one is false, kind of, at least directly false. And I'll explain that later. So during Harris's tenure, California continued to enforce really strict drug laws, and contributed to incarceration of many individuals, including people of color, for nonviolent drug offenses. However, the decision to prosecute specific cases would largely fall on the local district attorneys rather than the state attorney general's office. So based on that, and based off of the fact that we really can't find data on incarceration rates, or at least I couldn't find it. If you guys could find it, that'd be great. Share it, please. But I didn't see anything that definitively proved that she was directly responsible for the incarcerating of thousands of people. Yes, would you say that she, I know specifically people had an issue with the amount of folks who were going into prison because of marijuana and marijuana possession and marijuana use. And she wasn't in favor of legalizing marijuana. And so, but again, the direct result of a lot of those people going to jail would have been the actual district attorneys, and really the law of California, not necessarily Kamala Harris. Although she did not help the situation, I really can't say specifically it was her. It was a combination of the laws, and really it's predominantly the laws of the state. That's predominantly. So let's get into another one. So Harris supported cash bail. What is this one? This is actually true, or at least somewhat true. So, as the California Attorney General, Harris did not actively support any reforms to the cash bail system. In fact, her office defended the cash bail system in courts, especially up until the point where she became a senator. This kind of approach as the Attorney General surprised many bail reform advocates in California, as Harris seemed to sidestep the issue during her tenure as a district attorney and as Attorney General. During the 2020 campaign that she had, at the height of the George Floyd protests, if you guys remember, Harris called for an end to unjust and broken cash bail system, claiming it disproportionately harmed people of lower income status and people of color. But upon becoming the attorney, and then actually becoming the actual senator, it seems like she kind of shifted gears, and then she wanted to advocate for actually eliminating cash bail. So, what do you make of that? It seems like if you're a critic, or if you're just depending on how you want to look at this, they would point out that Harris's switching of positions was opportunistic, right? She wasn't really willing to stand on business when she was in a position to do something about it. And then when she switches over to being a senator on the federal level, then, I guess she felt more free to go forward. But really, is that the case? Or is it George Floyd and Black Lives Matter that, pushed that direction? It's like, oh, okay, it's in now. So let me go ahead and be with the in crowd. So, you could go either way on this, but again, based off of just the actions that were taking place during the time that she was in those positions of power, I'm going to have to say that she at least did not oppose the cash bail system. All right, let's go into the next one. So Harris was responsible for throwing parents in jail if their child missed too many days in school. This one is actually false, or at least directly false. I'll explain. So, as the district attorney, her office did implement an anti-truancy initiative in 2008 that was aiming to try to improve school attendance. I think I might have a clip here about that.
Here, were it not for the education I received. And I know many of us will say the same thing. And I believe a child going without an education is tantamount to a crime. So I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy. Well, this was a little controversial in San Francisco.
That laugh. I really don't like that laugh.
And frankly, my staff went bananas. They were very concerned because we didn't know at the time whether I was going to have an opponent in my re-election race. But I said, look, I'm done. This is a serious issue, and I've got a little political capital, and I'm going to spend some of it. And this is what we did. We recognized that in that initiative, as a prosecutor and law enforcement, I have a huge stick. The school district has got a carrot. Let's work in tandem around our collective objective and goal, which is to get those kids in school.
Right. So, the intention I can see is genuine, as far as we need to make sure that people are going to school to set themselves up to, go to college and set themselves up for success. I don't really like the term she used. I have a big stick. And that kind of concerns me, especially if you're running for president now, because you're going to have the biggest stick as president of the United States. But, but to be fair, there were no parents that were actually jailed for truancy while she was the DA for San Francisco. However, she did support the state law. And within that state law, some California parents did see time behind bars. And some of this, this law included penalties up to a year in jail for truancy of your child. So, Harris supporters will argue that the threat of prosecution was used only in extreme cases and involving weeks and months of missed class, and only after the parents have been offered help with health services and transportation and things like that did anybody have a chance to even see this kind of jail time. So similar to the mass incarceration claim, she's not directly responsible for those parents seeing jail time because of their child, but she is in a way indirectly responsible. So it's technically false, but you can make a case that she was responsible based off of how you want to look at it. Let's get into the next one. All right, so Harris failed to prosecute Steve Mnuchin for alleged foreclosure violations and predatory lending during the housing crisis. You guys kind of already saw, I kind of skipped ahead a little bit. That was true. This was interesting. As the chief officer of the office, right, her staff, and by extension, Harris, did not pursue the case. In 2013, prosecutors in the California Attorney General's office under Harris found evidence for 1,000 legal violations by One West Bank related to foreclosure practices and foreclosing on 35,000 homeowners. 35,000. They recommended filing a civil enforcement action against the bank. Despite this recommendation, Harris declined to prosecute One West Bank and Mnuchin without providing a clear explanation. When questioned about this decision, then at the time she was a senator, she vaguely stated, "It was a decision my office made." All right. It was a decision my office made. We were following the facts and the evidence, and it was a decision that my office made. Some critics will view this as a failure by Harris to hold Wall Street and banks accountable for misconduct during the foreclosure crisis. However, Harris defenders would note that she opted out of a national mortgage settlement to pursue a separate $12 billion settlement for California. The decision to not prosecute One West, fits a broader pattern of limited accountability in financial institutions during this Obama era, with many officers and officials, across the country really, were reluctant to aggressively pursue these cases against banks. So without a clear explanation from Harris, the true reasons behind the decision remain speculative. But, I'm going to take some words from Ian Sams, who was the spokesman for Harris' presidential campaign back in 2019. And he said, "There's no question One West conducted predatory lending, and Senator Harris believed they should be punished. But unfortunately, the law was squarely on their side, and they were shielded from state subpoenas because they were a federal bank. This shouldn't be surprising by how much influence the financial industry has wielded on Washington, but Senator Harris, again, she was a senator at the time, has introduced a bill to try to fix this." That's his words. I would say that at least give it an effort, especially if you have evidence. You can always push things to federal court. I don't know why she wouldn't be able to do that, but she, for whatever reason, decided not to pursue that case. All right, so here's the fifth claim, at least the ones that again, going through the list of things that I saw. Harris opposed statewide police reforms for California as the Attorney General. Now, I would say that this is also true. Back in 2016, some civil rights activists and members of the California Legislative Black Caucus said Harris needed to do more to increase accountability and ensure impartial investigations. In response, Harris opposed legislation that would require her office to independently investigate fatal police shootings. Her absence is notable, said Senator Holly Mitchell at the time, who was a Democrat for Los Angeles and a member of the Black Caucus, again at that time. People are looking to her for guidance and direction. She also opposed statewide legislation that would require police officers to wear body cams statewide, even though she had previously mandated body cams for agents at the California Department of Justice, which she oversaw. Now, as we've seen, especially with the video that I released, earlier, body cam footage now has become very paramount in a lot of these police shooting cases. So why she would be reluctant to do that on a state level after we've seen, well, again, hindsight is 2020. But even at that time, you could see the value there. Now, I think she responds, Harris's stance was that decisions about body cams should be left to local agencies rather than mandated at the state level. So that was her response to that. Her opinion on this would change over time, however, when she became a senator. You're noticing a trend here, right? She was one way when she was the attorney general, and then she became almost a completely different person when she became a senator. Eric Rose, a public affairs expert in Los Angeles, said it's important to remember that Harris comes from a law enforcement background. That's a good point. She hasn't backtracked on her beliefs. She hasn't switched positions, he said. She's a true liberal, but she's being smart about finding the right issues to talk about that wouldn't alienate the law enforcement community. You guys be the judge of that. Do you believe that? I don't know. That seems to be questionable to me, but I'll let you guys decide that one. Let's get into the next one. So the next claim is lawyers from Harris's office argued against releasing certain prisoners early, partially due to concerns about losing cheap prison labor. Ooh, this one's juicy. This one is juicy. This one sounds really bad. What is that one? This one is actually true. In 2011, the Supreme Court ruled in Brown versus Plata that California's prisons were way too crowded and they violated constitutional prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment. They ordered California to reduce their prison population. Well, in 2014, lawyers from Harris's office argued in court that releasing certain nonviolent offenders who were serving half their sentences would negatively impact the prison labor programs, including the ones that allowed inmates to fight wildfires for $2 a day. I don't know what's worse, sending inmates to fight wildfires or paying inmates $2 a day for essentially slave labor. I don't know what's worse. Both sound bad. But anyway, the lawyers argued that extending 2-for-1 credits to all minimum custody inmates at this time would severely impact the fire camp participation, a dangerous outcome while California is in the middle of a difficult fire season and severe drought. So look, we have these fires that are happening in California. We don't want to pay people properly to take care of this stuff. It's not like we want to hire more firefighters. Instead, let's go get some slave labor. Let's send these inmates out there and let them go to work. Huh? Right? That makes sense, right? They also noted that releasing these inmates would deplete the labor force both within the prisons and in the local communities where low-level offenders worked for very low wages. Again, we're talking about $2 a day. After this argument was criticized, Harris claimed that she was shocked. Shocked. Right? And she directed her office to not make that argument again. How does something like that happen? This is a situation where, to me, it's either you are orchestrating these things and you're telling people how to, handle these cases, or you're completely laissez-faire and just have no idea what's going on in your office. Either option is bad. But let's get into this last one. All right, so last one is Harris resisted efforts to overturn false convictions and resisted releasing people from jail who were found innocent. This one is a really bad one. I think she got into some heat with this one at the last presidential debate in the Democratic primary. I think Gabbard was getting in her butt on that one. So what's this one? Yes, this one's true. As California Attorney General, Harris's office fought against payments to people who were wrongfully convicted. And I'm going to just list off the names. Daniel Larson, who was declared factually innocent after serving 13 years for a wrongful conviction. Harris's office argued against his release on technical grounds despite evidence of his innocence. Let's go to George Gage, a former electrician with no criminal record, was convicted based on the testimony of his stepdaughter, which was later found not reliable. Despite the discovery of withheld evidence that could have exonerated him, Harris's office argued that Gage had missed a filing deadline, thus preventing his release. Let's go over to Johnny Baca, or Baca, who was convicted of murder based off of false testimony. A federal judge overturned this conviction, but Harris's office appealed the decision, delaying his release. Let's go over to Kevin Cooper. Kevin Cooper was a death row inmate who sought advanced DNA testing to prove his innocence. Initially, Harris opposed the testing, but she later supported it after the public caused pressure. She wasn't going to do it on her own. It took a whole bunch of people protesting in order for him to actually get this DNA test. Let's go over to Jose Diaz, right? Jose was convicted in 1984 of rape and attempted rape. He was paroled in 1993, became a registered sex offender, and began to work to try to prove his innocence. It took this man 19 years for his conviction to be reversed. And then he had to fight 2 more years against Harris's office, starting in 2012, to grant him compensation for the time that he was wrongfully imprisoned. During Harris's resistance to compensating his claims, they tried to make him re-register as a sex offender, despite a formal ruling that happened in April of 2013 that said he was innocent. Now, how do you explain these things? What's the explanation there? I mean, this is not like somebody just yelling out, "Oh, I'm innocent." No, they've been found innocent. Why are they still in jail? Why are you making this process more difficult? And also, why aren't you compensating these people who spent years in jail who were innocent? Think about this, especially with Jose Diaz. He spent 19 years in prison. You essentially ripped away almost 20 years of this man's life, and he was innocent the whole time. What job is he going to do now as an older man? I mean, think about the retirement he tried to put, that he could have put away, the time he spent or could have spent with his family, right? Maybe he, was going to do some traveling. Maybe he was going to do a public good. Maybe he was going to start a business. But none of that stuff will materialize because he spent 20 years in prison. You don't think this person should be compensated? You guys messed up. So, based on all of this, I'm not sure really who Kamala Harris is. I don't know if there seems to be multiple versions of her, right? There's the Attorney General version that essentially believes in keeping the status quo, not rocking the boat, just keeping things as they are. And if you happen to be stepped on, don't look at her as your savior. And then you have this other version as a senator who, will make speeches, who will say all these things, will be, there for folks, I guess. Will voice concerns. Now she happens to be, a champion for criminal justice. Although I based off of this, I don't see it. Maybe I'm missing something, and I don't have all the answers. So maybe you guys in the comment section will correct me, and I might have missed something. But based off of the research that I was able to gather, I don't see it. And that's all I was really looking for in this whole situation is the truth. That's all I want is the truth. I don't have any interest in bashing Kamala Harris. I don't have any interest in telling people not to vote for her. You do what you want. My whole interest is to figure out what is actually the truth. What is actually happening? And based off of what I was able to find, it does not look good. She is not a champion for criminal justice, at least based off of the opportunity that she had to implement some justicing. Now, hey, granted, maybe she feels more comfortable in her power, and now she's willing to go put herself on a limb or something. I don't know, but I have to go off of what is history. I have to go off the record, and that's what the record says. How does that translate to her as being a president? Well, that one comment that she made is very troublesome to me. I have a big stick and I don't mind using it. That sounds, kind of dictatory to me. But we shall see. One of the things I don't like is it seems like people think that she is beyond criticism. They get really uppity and in their pants anytime somebody says anything negative about her. And if you're supposed to be a leader of an organization, you're supposed to be a leader of a public office, you're supposed to be a leader of the, United States of America, you have to be able to withstand criticism. That comes with being a leader. That's the part of the deal. Right. And so there are legitimate concerns. There are legitimate criticisms, and we should be able to civilly discuss them. And that's really all I'm after here. So, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Of course, I have to remind everybody to like and subscribe. I hope that you've enjoyed the videos we've been pumping out. We've done less, edited stuff and did more off the script, just kind of shooting off the cuff. I hope you guys like those. We will be doing some more live streams. Mel will be back too. But yeah, we'll see you guys next time.